You are on assignment.
We'll keep increasing sanctions.
I like people coming here legally.
Now, a behind-the-scenes look.
Welcome to On Assignment. I'm Imran Siddiqui.
And I'm Maru Pandey. Coming up, we'll go to a Syrian refugee camp in Turkey where people are still living with the threat of gunfire.
There's some surprising new research about the impact of internet video on sites like YouTube.
And the U.S. presidential race heats up. We'll hear from our national correspondent.
And the Olympics are underway in London. We'll find out about some inspiring female athletes. Come with us as we go on assignment.
More than 300 people a day are fleeing Syria into Turkey to escape the conflict between the Syrian government forces and the opposition. At Kilis camp on the Turkish border, refugees watch as the violence unfolds just a few kilometers away.
Henry Ridgewell went there and told me about the camp where people still live in the shadow of violence. Let's start with a look at that report.
This is Kilis refugee camp in Turkey. The Syrian flag at the border flies just a few hundred meters from the revolutionary colours hoisted above the camp. Syrian government forces occasionally fire through the perimeter fence. 2 people were killed and 23 wounded in April.
My cousin was injured in the attack. He was shot in the hip. He is still in the hospital.
A concrete wall has been built to offer some protection. It is now a canvas for anti-Assad graffiti.
Despite the fact that these walls are being built, these refugees in Kilis are still being targeted by these Syrian snipers. Is that correct?
It's not a regular occurrence that they do fire into the refugee camp. Generally, I think that would even be a diplomatic step too far for Syria. Although, as you saw from the pictures, bullets have strayed into the refugee camp in the past. The refugees can hear, they can see the goings-on in Syria, the violence, helicopter gunships firing overhead. It's a matter of anger for the Syrian government that many of the opposition members are able to flee Syria into Turkey.
The Omar al-Mukhtar battalion of the Free Syrian Army, vowing to drive Bashar al-Assad's forces from Idlib province. The video is unverified. On a cross-border visit to the Turkish city of Antakya, the battalion's commander, Ahmad al-Kanatre Abu Hamza, said the FSA is making big gains in territory and manpower.
The number of defectors is now 100,000, and now they are defecting in bigger groups. This is a new phenomenon. The reason for the higher number of defections is that the regime is carrying out so many massacres every day.
Many FSA fighters are based at nearby refugee camps like Yayladağ. Army defectors here announce their name, rank, and show their military ID.
And so there is a motivation, I guess, for the Syrian government to target some of these refugees.
Is there any administration of this camp? Is it like a no man's land, or in other words, is there any hierarchy in leadership?
I've been to many refugee camps, and this one does seem pretty well run.
Clinics provide medical care for the injured and sick. There are shops, 2 mosques, a laundry. They lend an air of permanence.
Within the camp itself, there tends to be a group of elder men who were the spokespeople who we spoke to in the camp.
Who's taking care of the bill for this? I mean, is Turkey paying for this?
Turkey's paying for it. Yeah, they told me on that last trip that they're paying $6 million every month to cater for the refugees. Turkey's approach to this is twofold, really. On the one hand, they do want help paying for the refugees. Of course, it's a lot of money and the numbers are increasing, so they fear that the costs of catering for these refugees is going to increase sharply. On the other hand, they don't want to class this as a refugee crisis and get the help of the UN High Commission for Refugees and on all the legal framework that goes with that, because then you have to provide the refugees with certain levels of care. And there's a big question mark over the legal status of the refugees.
What is the pulse of the refugees? What are they saying? They must be pretty upset.
Their anger is directed at Syria's allies, like Russia, whom they blame for arming President Assad's forces.
Countries like Iran and Russia and Venezuela are supporting the Assad regime. This is a criminal regime.
They also see Russia blocking any progress in the UN towards trying to end the conflict. They're very angry also in asking why the international community has not come to help them.
Why not United States stop Russia killing in Syria?
What's your take on the relationship between Syria and Turkey right now?
It's completely the opposite of where we were about 2 years ago. Turkey used to be a very close ally of Syria. Prime Minister Erdogan and President Assad were friends. They were pictured often together. There was a lot of trade between the two countries, but since the uprising began, Prime Minister Erdogan of Turkey has been right at the forefront of criticism against Syria. He was very quick to end that friendship with President Assad, but he has his own domestic problems. His hands are tied in some sense, in that Russia and China, of course, who the West have been very critical of, are very crucial trading partners of Turkey. Russia, a very crucial energy supplier to Turkey. And so he can't be very vocal in his criticism of those countries. So playing a very careful diplomatic game.
Fantastic reporting by Henry Ridgewell. Henry covers international news for VOA from London.
We're going to take a break now. Still to come, the U.S. presidential race. It's heating up, but you'll be hard-pressed to find much warmth between the two candidates. You're watching On Assignment. A recent study is confirming what many television executives already suspected. People increasingly are finding and watching the news on YouTube. And more, a lot of that video isn't even shot by journalists. Doug Bernard covers technology here at VOA. He has more on this new report. News and YouTube, you usually don't think of the two together.
Exactly right, but increasingly, apparently, a lot of people do. Now, the Pew authors looked at 2001 news viewership in particular, and they found a number of things. First off, natural disasters were the most viewed videos. Right. So, for example, this is some images here recorded from Sendai, Japan, actually a robot that was rolling at the airport. And of course, no bigger natural disaster than the tsunami and the earthquake in Japan. So interestingly, this robot recorded the image. RT, which is Russia Today, they're a broadcaster, they just grabbed the video, turned it around, put it back up on YouTube, and it's well over 20 million views at this point. But that's not all that they found. What they're finding, I think, increasingly is that footage like this, sort of citizen journalism stuff, is finding its way into the news bloodstream, if you will. So, for example, let's take that recent terrible shooting recently in Aurora, Colorado. One of the first bits of video on scene was actually recorded by a patron. He used his iPhone. He was there at the time of the shooting. As you can see here, it's just scenes of chaos and pandemonium. But then he was able to tape it and upload it to YouTube within just a few moments. Now consider that and counter that with ABC television. ABC, a national broadcaster, it took them hours to get on the air to cover that event. But almost as soon as they went on the air, they turned from their standard coverage and incorporated that very video that we just saw. So they're turning and grabbing this stuff and using it almost in a seamless way as part of the overall news packaging.
So it's almost like a loop. I see something interesting, breaking news, I put it on there. Other news outlets are looking at YouTube, look at this is what an eyewitness has. We're going to take that, put it on our news report, put it back on there. So it's a new loop of information that's going back and forth.
That's exactly right, and loop is a great word, and it goes the other way too. I mean, the internet is all about dialogue and conversation, we're constantly told. So not only are news organizations taking footage that people are shooting, but people are increasingly taking news footage and using it for their own purpose. Now, for example, also in 2001, a big story was the death of Kim Jong-il. This is some footage from North Korea. A lot of people were fascinated by this. It was like these scenes of wailing and just sort of over-the-top grief. Well, this is just the news footage, the raw news footage. There are hundreds of videos on YouTube that take this video and then add to it. So people adding their own commentary, perhaps for satire purposes. We're not going to show you some of those just out of, I think, sort of consideration for these folk. But people are, I think, engaging with the news and video especially as a conversation.
And I think that's something that news outlets are embracing, obviously.
Oh, absolutely. And And, you know, I think in the end, there's really no big danger that YouTube is going to become NewsTube anytime soon. There's still plenty of silly videos.
Music videos.
Exactly, Justin Bieber and, you know, mashups. And,
right.
So anyway, we'll see all that stuff. But I think increasingly this is becoming a serious and important part of the news cycle.
And there obviously is for mass consumption here, so people get a chance to get a taste of being on the scene when they're not on the scene.
That's
and
exactly
some
right.
of these tsunami videos, people are still referencing, you know, months after. So
exactly,
it's compelling video,
stuff.
right?
Absolutely.
Compelling video. So if it's interesting to look at, we're going to keep looking at it. All right, thanks so much, Doug. A very fascinating report.
Oh, thank you very much.
All right. Well, we're going to take another break now, but when we come back, we'll take a look at the heated U.S. presidential race. You're watching On Assignment.
Opinion polls show a virtual dead heat in the U.S. presidential race between the incumbent Democrat President Barack Obama and the presumptive Republican nominee, former Massachusetts Governor Mitt Romney.
The race has taken a decidedly negative turn in recent days, and On Assignment's Philip Alexio got the latest from VOA's political expert, Jim Malone.
National correspondent Jim Malone, we are 3.5 months away from the presidential election. But each side obviously has some kind of a strategy. What's each side trying to do?
Well, you don't have to go very far, Phil. You can just turn on your television set here in the United States to see where the campaign is at. It's basically a lot of attack ads.
Mitt Romney has used every trick in the book.
Where did all the Obama stimulus money go?
The Romney campaign would love for this election to be about Barack Obama and his economic record.
His priority is not creating jobs for you. His priority is trying to keep his own job, and that's why he's going to lose it.
The Obama people know it's not a great record. It shows up in the polls. What they'd like to do is change the subject.
I promise you we will finish what we started in 2008. We will not be going backwards. We will be going forwards.
And how do they want to do that? They want to talk about Mitt Romney, his business background, and his tax returns. That's what's been going on the last few weeks. They think they've had some success so far. What the Obama campaign has decided to do is go at Mitt Romney's strength. He is advertised as a successful businessman. He's the guy to fix the economy.
You know, President Obama attacks success, and therefore under President Obama we have less success, and I will change that.
That's how he hopes to appeal not only to Republicans, but to key swing voters who will most likely decide the election. So the idea is, if you can take that away from Mitt Romney as a strength, make it a weakness, you may have a better chance in the election.
Well, now, have we seen this sort of thing before?
We have. And you don't have to go back very far. In 2004, the incumbent president, George W. Bush, went after the strength of his Democratic opponent, John Kerry, and his service in the Navy during the Vietnam War.
John Kerry has not been honest, and he lacks the capacity to lead.
Questions were raised about Kerry's war record, and it helped to define Kerry to the public months before the election.
Now, is it true that at this point in time, most of the country has probably decided who they're going to vote for?
Look, all indications are it's a very close election. The polls show it virtually deadlocked. There is a sense among the experts that a lot of people have already decided. What you're trying to do is persuade that 5–10% in the middle at the most who aren't sure yet. That's what all these ads are aimed at. And by the way, it's not all over the country. It's only in about a dozen or so what we call battleground states where it's very competitive. Those are the states that'll tip the election one way or the other in November.
How is the rest of the world seeing this election, and how does it translate to the rest of the world?
First of all, in 2008, I think we had an internationalized U.S. election. I think the world, in a sense, had a stake in Barack Obama. And so there's continuing interest in how he's done over the past 4 years and whether or not he can win again. That being said, this campaign is so about domestic issues, it probably has tuned out people around the world. But we have to remember the President of the United States is still the leader of the free world. So whatever happens will have an impact worldwide.
But what is his popularity today worldwide as to when he came into office?
It's slightly down. I think there's a bit of a sense of disappointment that he hasn't delivered on what he promised. But then a lot of Democrats and independents who voted for him in this country have that feeling as well. The Obama campaign's well aware of this. They're going to try to make it a choice election. You may not love everything this president has done, But do you really want to go backward with Mitt Romney? That's the argument they're going to try to make.
And when do the political debates start between these two? When
the beginning of October, we'll have the beginning of 3 presidential and 1 vice presidential.
So then we can hear from the men themselves. We will indeed. National correspondent Jim Malone.
I know as reporters we can't give our opinion, but who do you think is going to win?
I don't know.
No idea.
It's going to be, I think it's going to be a very tight race. And I think as the election gets close, we're going to see a lot more negative ads.
Okay.
So, fun stuff. Well, moving on to our next story. For the first time ever, female athletes outnumber men on the U.S. Olympic team.
VOA's Carla Babb spoke with On Assignment's Lisa Vora about 2 of these women, a weightlifter and a judo champion. Let's take a look at their profiles.
Be sure it's strong.
There are 8 more female Olympians than male Olympians on the U.S. team for the London Games this year, the 40th anniversary of a federal law known as Title IX. The law has helped provide equal opportunities for female athletics.
Very fast.
Let's start by talking about one of the 2 female athletes competing, Holly Mangold.
Yes, Holly Mangold is amazing. She is the super heavyweight in weightlifting, and she has really excelled over the past year and a half. She is going to the Olympics ahead of her time, really.
If I wasn't a professional weightlifter, I don't know what I'd be doing. So I'm very privileged to have this chance and have those amazing women before me that kind of just paved the way.
In high school, she played football.
That's right. Holly has always been pushing the limits for women. And when she was in high school, she wanted to play the linebacker position for American football. And there had been women before who had played it as kickers, but no one in her state of Ohio had played a position where you tackle and you push with the men, and she did it, and she did it well. That's Mangold in the center. She says that experience pushed her to her current sport.
My coach said, well, you're pretty strong for a female. I took it as a compliment. I'm pretty sure it was meant as an insult. And because of that, I decided to go into powerlifting, and then after powerlifting, I went into Olympic weightlifting.
Once she got into weightlifting, she told VOA that she was a bit of a party girl, and she didn't really have that focus, that drive that the Olympic athletes need. But she got that push from her friends, and once she did that, she forced herself to stop partying, to wake up early, to train harder, to train longer, and she just blew everyone away this year. The rise has not been easy. At about 160 kilos, Mangold is not exactly your stereotypical Olympian.
People will say stuff about my weight and how crazy it is, but you know what? It's me. I've been this size forever.
Now let's go to the second girl, Kayla Harrison, who is already a judo world champion. At the beginning of the piece, you mentioned that she actually started this as a hobby, as self-defense.
Right, she started when she was a little girl. Her mother put her into classes and wanted her to learn self-defense, as you said.
I loved to fight. I don't think I won a match for like the first 3 years, but I had a lot of fun.
And then it just became something that she realized, wow, I'm really good at this. But she didn't realize how good she was until she started working with Jimmy Pedro. And Jimmy Pedro, her coach, was the last male to win a bronze medal for the Olympics back in 2004. And so a lot of people are saying that she, Kayla, is the best chance that the United States has for a gold medal.
You know, I've only had 2 goals my whole life. One is to be world champion and one is to be Olympic champion. So having reached one, to be the best in the world at what you do, there is no greater feeling in life. There is no greater high.
This isn't just an Olympics for her. She's not satisfied just to go. She wants gold.
I picture it every night. I picture being America's first gold medalist.
She challenges herself by training with fellow Olympian Travis Stevens, and she knows that's helped her push her limits.
VOA's Kane Faribault and Park Brewer, who actually spoke to these girls, they were given a chance to see these girls in action. Tell me a little bit about that. And they were in Dallas, correct?
Right. The U.S. Olympic Committee did something this year. They always have an expo where they get to showcase the athletes, showcase the Olympians, and allow an opportunity for reporters to talk to these amazing athletes. But this year, they did something a little different. They had demonstrations as well. So we were able to go and see Holly do her weightlifting. We were able to go see Kayla with her judo. And it was just a really new look on things, and it really made reporters appreciate the sports.
Yeah, I bet you the energy was amazing over there.
Yes, and you're looking at the best in America.
Right.
So when you're there with all of those athletes, all wanting to represent their country, it's an incredible high.
One thing in your piece that grabbed my attention is that Kayla was sexually abused by her coach. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, she was when she was a young teenager. And like you said, it was by her coach, of all people. And a coach for an athlete, I'm an athlete as well, and your coach is your hero, your mentor.
I remember what it was like to be a victim, and I remember, how it felt and the taboo around it. And I remember walking into a room and feeling like all eyes were on me, and feeling like, just you break out into a cold sweat and you feel like so anxious.
For her to overcome that, she took him to court, and he is serving a prison sentence for what he did to her. But instead of giving up, she left her town, she moved to Boston, changed coaches, and now she's a world champion going for gold at the Olympics.
That's a really inspiring story. Just how she overcame adversity. It'll help a lot of people.
An incredible person and an amazing story.
Yes, it happened to you, but it doesn't define you. And yes, it's going to be tough, but you can't let it control your life. You have to say something. You have to speak out. You have to be strong.
As London hosts the Olympics, the top concern for organizers is security. Since the attack at the Munich Games in 1972, security has taken up a large chunk of the Olympics budget.
With the rise in global terrorism in recent years, Olympic security arrangements have an even higher profile. VOA's Al Pessin has our full feature story this week from London.
This is the view British Air Force pilots will get as they approach the Olympic Stadium, if they're called on to respond to an emergency. British officials are using all their resources to prepare for any contingency, including putting fighter jets on alert. They're also deploying 17,000 troops and installing anti-aircraft missiles in residential neighborhoods around the Olympic Park. Even the Navy is getting involved with a warship and small boats on duty in the River Thames. The military role had to be increased by several thousand troops at the last minute when a private contractor failed to recruit as many security guards as it had promised. Officials say the glitch won't affect the safety of the Games, but it does present challenges, according to security consultant David Rubens.
I think the honest answer is no, they're not ready, and they're certainly going to have to make do and mend rather than manage the situation as they'd hoped to do from the beginning of the operation.
Most of the millions of Olympic fans and tens of thousands of participants won't see the military aspects of the security. For them, going to the Games will be like going through an airport. The security staff had a chance to practice during Olympic trial events earlier in the year, including some of the smallest team members. The Olympic Park Security Control Room also got a workout as officials practiced using the latest technology to monitor all corners of the 200-hectare area. The center brings together civilian and police officials, including London's top police officer for Olympic security, Assistant Commissioner Chris Allison.
You will see a high-profile policing presence outside, but the key for us to do it in a way that's not oppressive, where the focus can be on the sport, the focus can be on the spectators.
It will be a challenge to secure dozens of Olympic venues all over London and indeed throughout the country. The chairman of the London Olympics Organizing Committee, former British gold medalist Sebastian Coe, says there's no appetite for risk, but security won't dominate the Games.
We're inviting people to come to London to celebrate the greatest sporting event, that this country has ever seen. We're not inviting people to siege city, so there is a proportionality here. And in this country, we always pretty much get that right.
As the Games proceed, people all over the world will be watching to see whether the organizers succeed through the challenging 17 days of the Olympics. Al Pessin, VOA News, London.
And that's our show this week. Join us again next week when we look at the AIDS conference in Washington.
And we'll also go to the Philippines to find out more about the ongoing fishing dispute there with China. In the meantime, you can catch all of our episodes at voanews.com and on Facebook. From all of us at On Assignment, thank you so much for watching. See you next time.